obviously we all know why we're here. A lot of questions, but we do know now, as details start to emerge, that there was a shooting at a Trump rally, and obviously President Trump now uh, suffering an injury to his ear. What were your immediate thoughts after getting the news and seeing what you saw?
Well, when I saw it happen, it was very, very sickening. I've been through an assassination attempt myself where Republican congressmen were targeted on a baseball field. One of us shot, four other people hit, the assassin was killed. So that immediately goes through your mind. At the same time, you're watching to see what the injuries might be with Donald Trump or people in the stands. And very, very fortunate that Donald Trump appears to have received a grazing injury. If he hadn't turned his head just enough, apparently before the shot was fired or while the bullet was in the air, it would have hit his skull as opposed to his ear. And of course, there's a whale of a difference in the significance of an injury to one versus the other. So very, very pleased and proud to see President Trump give a defiant fist bump to the sky to let everybody know that he was okay, and also let people know that he was not going to let this deter him in his effort to be president. Very, very saddened to discover that one of the attendees has been killed. Perhaps more. We're still getting early reports. Pleased that the assassin appears to have been gunned down. But for whoever it is that killed that assassin, there may have been more bullets fired and more people injured or killed.
Now, political violence is obviously going to be the topic for the next foreseeable future, really. What does this kind of activity show where we are as a country in your eyes?
Well, if you go back throughout history with Ronald Reagan, with John F. Kennedy, heck, you can even go back to the 1800s, Abraham Lincoln, before and after that. If you're president of the United States or a candidate for president of the United States, you're putting your life at risk and to some degree in the hands of God. And we pray that our presidential candidates will not be subject to this kind of violence, but unfortunately it goes with the turf. Fortunately for the president, he has a very, very good, the best in the world security team with all that the Secret Service agents do. Fortunately, we in Congress and in the Senate, at least when we're on Capitol Hill, we have fairly good security, not so much when we're away from our offices. But unfortunately, in this day and time, you've got great intensity of feelings as to which direction the country should go. And, you know, to the left or to the right or stay in the center lane. And with that intensity of feelings, and you sometimes, on occasion, rarely, that's good, rarely, see people take things into their own hands and try to assassinate one of our political leaders. That's not the way in America to take someone out of office. If you don't like somebody, you don't shoot them. You get people to rally around your cause and you try to beat them at the ballot box. But we do have these aberrations, as I mentioned with John F. Kennedy, with Ronald Reagan, with various congressmen over a period of time, where people take the wrong approach that harms our republic rather than enhances it.
There's been a lot of political discourse revolving around the polarization of how politics have been played nowadays. There's either a staunch position to the left or to the right, and there doesn't seem to be much of a middle. Do you think that plays a factor into where we are now politically as a society?
Well, absolutely. There's not a lot of common ground between communism and Marxism, totalitarian type government on the one hand, where the government officials, whether they be congressmen, senators, or presidents, or bureaucrats, telling you as an individual what you can and cannot do with your life, versus liberty and freedom on the other hand. You know, we've fought wars where those two principles were at stake. Certainly the Revolutionary War, certainly the Civil War, World War II, the Cold War. We have consistently as a people fought for liberty and freedom. But right now, to varying degrees, from my perspective at least, the enemy is within. Now, if we as a republic go the way that, say, Europe has, where government officials can micromanage everything you do and can't do, each time they do that, that's a diminishment of the freedom that so many Americans have fought for, the liberty that so many Americans have fought for and died for. So, yeah, there's not a lot of compromise between liberty and freedom on the one hand and a totalitarian government on the other. So I'm one of those who believes that the government ought to have less effect on our daily lives, not more.
Where do you see this going in the future? What do you hope the result can be in the middle of this? Is this a moment where we as a country can stand together and say no to political violence, or do you think this can continue to separate where we are as a society politically?
Well, I firmly believe that the vast, vast majority of Americans, 99%, are opposed to political violence. But we have these fruitcakes, we have these nutcases, we have these people who get vehement. When I was shot at along with my fellow Republicans on a baseball field in Alexandria, Virginia, the guy who did it was a socialist, and he supported socialist candidates. And he had an ideology that is an anathema to someone like me that believes in liberty and freedom. So that's where he was coming from. I don't yet know where this particular shooter was coming from, but I suspect that he or she, as the case may be, is in isolation. I don't anticipate that 99% of us who believe in peaceful governance are going to change our views one iota. But we got to watch out for the aberrants, because the aberrants are the ones that can pierce even the best security, as you've seen today with Donald Trump, and as you saw with Ronald Reagan, and as you saw fatally, unfortunately, with John F. Kennedy. And note that we've got presidents or presidential candidates of both parties now who have been shot at. And I should add Robert F. Kennedy as a candidate for president back in 1968. So that's 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, either incumbent presidents or running for president. So it's a bipartisan animosity that's out there amongst these aberrant people who don't understand how important it is for us to allow the ballot box to resolve our differences, not guns.
I think that covers everything I